let's see. So today I'm going to just present a few things, a few protocols out of this book called the EduProtocol Field Guide. It's by Malena Hebern and John Corippo. And the ones that I've gotten are out of book 1, but they originally published book 1. They came up with other EduProtocols, and they do have a book 2 available. But the ones that I'm going to share today are all found in book 1. And so I've chosen 3 to look at, and then depending on how kind of timing goes, we might have time just to kind of take a quick peek at a 4th one. So the big idea behind the EduProtocols is that by having these lesson frames already set up and training the students how to use them, you can simplify your planning as well as freeing up the students' thinking for the content. So they can be more focused on the content and less focused on like how to do the classroom steps. So, as we already know as teachers, the more you can kind of keep things moving with a predictable routine, of course, the faster things go and the better the kids do at it. So that's the idea behind it. And these are all kind of focused on, a lot of them are collaborative. They're using technology, which now our kids get a lot of practice with technology, but these were kind of designed to use a lot of technology even before that was a thing that we always had. So that kind of adds an element still for the kids to kind of grab onto and have fun with. So we'll get started. So the first one that I want to talk about is called the Fast and the Curious. And this one is kind of perfect for skills that need to be known from memory. And so the idea is you are going to use like a quizzing tool on the computer. So the students do need access to Chromebooks or iPads or whatever the case may be. A couple of the quizzing tools that I've used is Quizzes. I know some teachers are using Kahoot. Also, if you are a Nearpod user, there is Time to Climb, which is one of the games that's built in that also works well for this. But for today's demo, I'm going to be showing Quizzes. The only thing really, as you choose whatever tool you like, is that you want to make sure that it's something that's fun for the kids, that it gives you immediate feedback on the whole class's performance, so you know as a percentage how much they got correct. And that also it gives you immediate feedback on which questions were challenging for students, where they made the most mistakes. So sort of the traditional flow of many lessons is we teach the students something, then they practice it, and then we might do a quiz or a check for understanding at the end. And this, the Fast and the Curious kind of like turns that whole thing around a little bit. So instead of doing it that way, you actually quiz first. You kind of have to decide as the teacher, like if there are some things that you would need to front load, but for the most part, you are going to do the quiz first. You tell students that, this is just the first time. We're going to see what you know, what you need to learn, and tell them to make a note either in their mind or on a piece of paper of their score at the end. Be upfront that there's going to be a lot of mistakes. That's great. The mistakes are kind of our opportunities to learn. And one of the things that's really important with this is that you have a kind of a classroom culture where mistakes are valued as a learning opportunity. After the quizzing, you only are teaching where the students made mistakes. And so this is where you can really focus on the correct answers and also focusing on a strategy that they might use. And the great part about that is that they can apply that strategy then not only to the questions you focus on that were mistakes, but on any of the other questions where maybe only 1 or 2 students made a mistake. You would use just the high frequency mistakes as your teaching points. And the engagement for the students is really high because they know they're going to do it again, like during that same lesson very quickly. And so they are usually pretty motivated to try and want to retain what you're learning. So that's the kind of cool thing is this. It's like the initial quiz is that's kind of your hook. And so the students know right away, like, oh, okay, I really do want to know how to figure out number 4 because that's when I made a mistake on. So that's kind of the big thing here. And then you quiz again right away. And the goal for each student is that they try to beat their own previous score. And as a whole class, the goal is an improvement of the score overall as a whole class percentage. So here's an example of one I did recently. This was on multiplication, third grade standard. Multiplication facts are really important. But like I said, this strategy works really well for anything where you kind of have to memorize or learn something from memory. So as the students are working, it tells you this is quizzes, it tells you in real time kind of how the students are doing. So I can see that this student, she got a streak of 20, she got them all correct, whereas this person's working a little bit more slowly and has had the red color and signifies a few mistakes. And it tells you an overall percentage as they're going along and at the end of the game. And I'll demonstrate kind of doing a quiz in a little bit, or we'll see if it's just the three of us, we'll decide if we want to do that, but I'll show kind of how to find some quizzes and that kind of thing. So the other thing is at the end of the game, it tells you as the teacher, and you don't have, you wouldn't project this screen. This is really just for you to look at, but you can see where the high frequency mistakes are. So like right here, I can see question number 9, only 50% of the students got it correct. So I definitely am going to want to review whatever was in question 9. And then as I teach the answer to question 9, I can also teach a strategy that could be applied, for this student even who happened to be the only one who missed question 1. So it's an opportunity to teach both the correct answer, and a strategy they can use. This also, one of the things I like about quizzes that I don't think every tool provides is that you can click this little checkbox and it shows how long each question took. So particularly if I'm trying to know if students really do know it, like quick, I can tell based on how fast they answered the questions. So, I might have this student down here who got them all right and this student up here, but, one of them might really have a better handle on the memory part of it. And I can tell by how long it took them to answer each question. And then you can dig into the answer. So if you click this review questions button, then it will pop up the questions and you can go to those specific ones that maybe had a high frequency of mistakes. Of course, this one was one where almost everybody got it correct. But that just happened to be the one that popped up first because this was question number 1. But you can rotate through all of the questions and just kind of pause to look at the ones where the accuracy was really low. And it doesn't tell the names of the players who made mistakes, so it's still anonymous and low stakes for the kids. And then after you've done that, you test again. And in this one that we did most recently, we went from a 69% the first time. And the second time we did it really just with 10 minutes of extra instruction, the whole class went up to 82% accuracy. And so that will just kind of keep going up, and you might do it over a couple of days or again, a couple weeks later. And the goal, depending on what you're trying to do, you would keep playing until you get to 100%. But the big idea for the fast and the curious is quiz at the beginning, knowing there's going to be mistakes, get buy-in for your instruction, and then quiz again right away. So before we do Bokakucha, I'm just going to kind of do a quick, we'll do a quick demo on quizzes. So let me switch my tab, as I always have to remember, switch my tab. So here's an example of quizzes. And one of the things that I really like about this tool and other kind of online quizzing tools is many students have a lot of stress and anxiety about timed testing, especially when it comes to math things. And so for this, as a teacher, for me, I choose not to use the timed aspect at all. I know I can always go back and see in the results how long it took them to answer the questions, but I don't have to put that timer on for them. So when I start a live quiz, these are some of the options that I have available. Is I can choose, for example, whether to show a leaderboard. And as a teacher, we kind of know our students. Some classes get stressed out by a leaderboard, or you might have a lot of students who are falling lower. I choose usually not to show the leaderboard because I really emphasize that they are competing against themselves, not against other kids in the class. And then you can also choose things like whether they can get redemption questions, like whether it comes back, the same question will come up twice. And also you can choose to have the timer on or off. So there's a lot of customization available here. And And there's a big bank of, if you're in the quizzes library, you can really search for quizzes on any topic. So like we just put in multiplication, you can find all kinds of different quizzes. And the great thing is if you find one that's maybe, you know, it's good for you, but it's not perfect for you, you can always copy and edit it and then, you know, make the changes that suit your class and your level. And if you don't find one that works for you at all, you can create a quiz from scratch. And when you're doing that, you have, like, let's see here. We can do multiplication again as an example. And they really actually, I've been using quizzes for years, and they've really added a lot of elements to it over the last year since the pandemic started. So you can add multiple choice questions, but you can also do fill in the blank questions. And both of those would kind of work for the fast and the curious pretty equally well, because there's like a definitive right and wrong answer. So I'm going to go back to my library because I've saved some quizzes, and we can kind of start a live quiz. And actually it's not going to show the student. I don't know, based on when you guys have done these sessions before, should I do a live quiz, or the screenshots that I showed, do you think I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think it's fine. We could skip it.
Okay. All right.
I think the screenshots were good.
Okay, good. I figured it would be best to see it with the whole class. So that's the fast and the curious. Any questions or thoughts about it before I move on?
I think that sounds really cool that you do it in one session, in one teaching session.
Yeah. All right, great. Okay, so that's the fast and the curious. The next one is Bokakucha. And this is, I think the original, according to what they said in their book, this was based on a, like in the Japanese, there was like this, it's like something used in big companies where they would do these presentations, and you had like a set time limit per slide, and they had to do like a quick presentation. And they kind of adapted this idea, I think, of like the Pechakucha or Pichakucha, for a Bokakucha. So that's kind of the funny name, and kids actually like saying the funny name, so that works. This one is used for reading accountability. So a lot of times, you know, you have kids who are reading all kinds of different books for their independent reading assignments, and this is a way to build in some accountability without doing like, you know, an AR quiz or something like that, which doesn't always give you what you need to know about their comprehension. It also gives the students an opportunity to present in front of the class, or, you know, right now on a Google Meet, but they're presenting their own ideas with pretty low stakes because it's not graded or anything like that. And then you also just give quick feedback to them in real time. So
just wanted to ask, are you on a different screen, like on a presentation right now?
Yes, thank you. Okay. So Bokakucha, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so the writers of the book actually have a website, EduProtocols.com. And when you go here, there are a whole bunch of their free templates. So you can see a lot of the different things that they have in the book. They have templates already available to you. And so I wanted to, you know, do proper credit to the people who have spent so much time creating these things. So if we look at their Bokakucha template, the idea with these is that everybody on one day kind of stops, and wherever they are in the book that they're reading, go back to the beginning for now, wherever they are in the book that they're reading, they are going to present about the book. So everyone doesn't have to be finished. It's not like a book report, so where we're all done with the book at the same time. Instead, it's just wherever you are today, you're going to present something about your book. And as a teacher, I get to choose the themes that it might be. So some of the examples that they give is in nonfiction, you could talk about cause and effect, the history of things, writing a summary. It really can be customized based on whatever your focus of the week is or your focus of that particular unit is. And then same thing for literature types of fiction books. You could talk, have them say, these are 3 characters from the book, or these are 3 lessons. As you get higher up for older students, things about, the main conflicts or problems the characters face. So as a teacher, you kind of decide what you want your focus to be for that week. And then for older students, they add the title with the name and the author. They tell what page they're on. So this is where I say it doesn't have to be that everybody's finished with their book. And then they have to write on the theme that you gave them, and then they have to choose a picture to connect to it. So it doesn't have to be a literal picture. It doesn't have to be if you're writing about a character, it doesn't have to be a picture of that character, but just some sort of symbolic or picture representation of the ideas that they shared in writing. And for younger kids, instead of having it be like 3 problems the characters face, it might just be 1 problem the character faced. But as your students get older, you can add a little bit more complexity. One of the big things about this EduProtocol is that it's meant to be quick. So the element of a timer, as we've all probably found, really does get kids motivated to be fast. And so when they start the process, you set a timer, 10 minutes is how long it's going to be. And they have to really be focused on getting it done in 10 minutes, because in 10 minutes, they're going to stand up and present it to the class. So the first time, you'll get some kids who finish a really good page and some kids who have 1 sentence because they really don't have a good feel for what it means to have only 10 minutes. But the idea is that as you do it kind of week over week, it improves over time, and the quality of what you get gets better. So I have an example here with younger students. This was with 2nd graders. So our focus was really paying attention to who the characters were. So this was one, our question was, who's the main character? And do they recommend the book? So this particular day, I decided to focus it more around a book talk. And this student just decided to take a picture of the cover of her book and who the main character is. This one was a little bit different. This one was, who's the main character and how did he or she change by the end of the story? So this one took a little bit deeper thinking. And again, she included a picture and talked a little bit about how the character was at the beginning and how they changed by the end of the story. So after they do their slides, they create their slides. And like I said, it might be 1 slide for younger kids. It might be 2 or 3 slides at the most, probably for older kids. If you really want more depth than that, I would say it's probably best to add more depth to each slide than going longer. Because the goal is then when the students present is that they have 20 seconds per page to explain to the class kind of what they're talking about. So it's meant to be super quick. And so that each student gets to present on that day. So again, it's another thing where you're doing the whole thing in 1 session. They're writing about their book. They're coming up with that pictorial representation, and they're presenting all in 1 session. And then as the teacher, I can just give super quick feedback after each presentation. So like I said, it's not graded, but I can say, hey, I like how you really identified how that character changed, or I can kind of focus in on what do I want my feedback to be.
Do you do this all on 1 slide presentation that they all edit together?
I have done it both ways. For younger kids, it tends to work better when I put it in Google Classroom and just let it make a copy for each student. And then when it's time to present, I just open up each one individually. With older kids, you could probably definitely say, here are your slides. But yeah, with younger kids, especially if they are going to fill in 2 or 3 slides, for them to find the 2 or 3 that are all theirs is a little bit tricky. So I found it easier to do that. But I think with older kids, you could say like, this is your starting slide and the next 3 slides also belong to you, and they would be able to manage that. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's kind of it for the book Akucha. And then the last one, any questions on that one? Good.
Yeah. So do you pick like a different question each day? Like, do you do it every day of the week?
I don't do it every day. It's this one is more of like a once every week or two. You kind of have to decide. Right now with distance learning, it's I probably do it less frequently than it should be done because we just have such a short amount of time for each subject during our half days. But when I've been teaching in person and we have a full school day available to us, it usually was like a fun Friday thing. So
Okay.
we knew that on Fridays, wherever they were in whatever book they were reading, they were going to do their book Akucha, and they would get to present to the class. And it was a fun way too for the kids to get ideas for other books they wanted to check out from the library and that kind of thing too.
That makes sense because then they have a chance to get enough reading done before that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think in the book they recommend every 1 or 2 weeks, and I will confess that as in distance learning, it's definitely happening for me less frequently than that. So some of the momentum that you get when you're doing it more frequently, I haven't gotten as much this year, and it's like everything else. It's like trying to find that balance with the distance learning. And this one, and I'll talk about actually one other thing just to kind of keep in mind is much like the next one I'll talk about, I'll say this again, but is keeping in mind the timing is really key. Even if it feels like, oh, you know what, we're at 10 minutes and I have only 2 kids ready this first time, it's okay. Just compliment the work that you saw those 2 kids do, and then other kids will kind of want to mimic that the next time, and they will get better over time. So it's okay. Don't feel the urge. This is kind of the idea throughout the whole book, actually, is like it's meant to be quick so that they start to learn like what it means to like produce work and get it done. Because I know I have always in my class like some students who, if you give them the time, they'll take 2 days worth of sessions to make one Google slide for something. So they just kind of have to learn that it's going to be done and it's going to be quick. And when they're presenting to their peers, they're really motivated to try and make it the best it can be. And then if you still have like early finishers, you could challenge them with an extra question, or you could have them take a second picture. Or a lot of times for younger kids, especially, this is a motivator. It's like, if you are finished early, then you can start playing around with the fonts and the backgrounds and colors and start to make it kind of fancy if you have extra time. But having that time limit is really important. And then the last strategy that I'm going to share is called Iron Chef. And so the reason that they explain the reason it's called Iron Chef is because there's a timer again. So when the time is up, your time is up for making your slide. And it's collaborative. So you're working with a team, but you're each doing something different. So it's kind of like a jigsaw type of thing where each student is responsible for a different element or a piece of the topic. And then you're giving really quick feedback, and you kind of transition into the peers giving feedback. So much like the show Iron Chef has a panel of judges, you transition from you being kind of the one giving feedback to the peers giving feedback over time. So I'm going to go to one of their templates again. Sorry, I'm just going to get it open so I have the right thing here. So with Iron Chef, the way it works is that you would give each person a piece of the topic, and they're going to you give one slide deck that has 4 pages. So there's a page for each student. So you would have teams of 4 if you can. If you need to, you can have one team of 3. But you would have, each person has a page in the slide deck that they're going to be responsible for completing. And again, you give the topics. So you would tell them what's the content they're going to write. You're also tell them they have to choose one image. So they're going to give some text, they're going to give an image to represent it. And then you're going to give a secret ingredient. And that secret ingredient is kind of just something for an early finisher to take maybe a little bit deeper thinking on, or even just kind of like a little bonus category that might be fun, a little fact for the kids to share, or that kind of thing. So again, the templates are all available on eduprotocols.com. So you don't have to kind of invent the wheel, and then you can adapt it and shift it around for your own students. So I'm going to open, yeah, that's that one. So a couple of tips as you do this one, and as I kind of show the tips, I'm going to show some examples. So is be mindful not to teach the protocol itself and content at the same time. So eventually they can learn new content and put it into the protocol, but you want to start with content that's super easy for them at the very beginning so that they're not having to learn both things at once. So that's really important. So here was an example that I did as a starting point is the students, the writing part was named 4 things you know about apples. So I wanted to pick something that everybody knows about a piece of fruit, like they can understand how the slide is organized. So they have to give their information, they have to give a picture, and then our secret ingredient was just kind of what is your favorite food. So the secret ingredient, they know they're always due last. So something really simple as a starting point. Also know that early attempts won't be very good for a lot of the students. Again, the idea is the timer rings and everyone, just like on the show, everyone has to put down their food. Same thing here. The timer's up, our time is up. Like it is what it is, and that's what you're going to present to the group. And so here's an example. This student didn't get time for the secret ingredient. They didn't get time to add the picture. But what's really interesting is when he was presenting it to the class, they get better. There's more metacognition when they know they're presenting it to the class. So, as he presented it to the class and he was saying apples are healthy and good for you and good for the body, but he pointed out to the class, oh, body has a Y at the end. I know I should have done that with a Y at the end. So, right away, he's thinking more instead of me having to tell, he was already thinking about it. So that's one of the things where I've noticed they take a lot more ownership for it when they know that they're presenting it to their classmates. And then the last thing, as I kind of said before, is sticking to the timer. The students get used to the timing with practice, and so the attempts do get better. And they really do notice what the feedback is that you gave on one student, and then they will kind of start to incorporate that as they do their own going forward. So those are just kind of some of the tips that I had. Then that is the last one about Iron Chef. And I think we are 30 minutes, right? Is this?
Yeah.
Just made it.
I have a question on the Iron Chef activity. Is you have 4 slides for 4 students. Are the slides different, or is each student adding a different thing?
Yes, good question. So each slide would be different for each student. So in this one, that is an example, I had one slide about apples, one slide about oranges, one slide about watermelon. So each one is different, but like for content wise, right now in 3rd grade, we're reading about communities. And in one of the benchmark texts, there's like a section where there's like 4 different communities, a rural community and a city and that kind of thing. So I can now, once they're used to the protocol, I can now say, okay, this group, there's going to be one slide about a rural community, one slide about a city, one slide about suburban. And that's kind of where the jigsaw piece comes in.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.